Hi,
Got
everyone.
it.
Hello. Hi, John. This is John
Hi.
McCarney, and welcome to Extreme Screenwriting's Fix My Screenplays weekly newsletter interview.
Cool.
Today, John is going to be telling us about his screenplay that won a contest and how he won it and what that's all about. So I'm going to let John tell us, first of all, what is the title of your screenplay, its genre, and tell us about the contest you won. Tell us a little bit about that, John.
Okay, yeah. The screenplay is Blood and Roses. It's genre is basically it's a war action drama story inspired by true events. Giving you a little bit of idea about it, it's about two different Marines from different backgrounds that are tasked in Afghanistan to go make reparations for victims of drone strikes, and they're two very young Marines. And I took a little bit of creative liberty with it to make it a little bit more interesting by having that the war is not their only enemy. There's poppies and drugs in Afghanistan, so that all gets mixed up, and it turns into quite a bit of a thriller towards the end.
Okay, great. That's fantastic. Now, you had emailed me and said that our coverage had helped you because I had told you to move some of the scenes to the beginning because this particular contest had some limitations. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a great point where you really helped me, Barb, with the coverage. The opening scene before was a thing about animal rights and all these different things, but it was a war movie, and you're going to go ahead and confuse your audience. So I moved the scene up that was a lot later to the very beginning at your suggestion, which actually set the tone in Afghanistan in the war with the drug dealers, with the drones, and but the thing is, when I did have that, I had 13 pages, which was no big deal. It was fine within the context of the screenplay, but the particular contest was Fade In Awards, first 10 pages. So I looked at it to go, hey, can I maybe cut this down some to fit the 10 pages? And again, with your help and in coverage and everything too, about how to go through stuff and what's really needed and not, I really took a hard look at it. And since the characters were so well developed, I could remove some of the action lines that were describing some things that were already coming out of those characters. And by doing that, I ended up cutting it down almost 3 pages, believe it or not, and made it a little bit quicker paced. And the voices of the characters spoke a lot more than the action did, as far as trying to describe what they were doing. As they started speaking, you started knowing who these people were. And the other thing too, Barb, that I don't know if I mentioned this to you, you actually helped me with the title, because the original title was John about Spenlov, which I thought was kind of interesting. But again, if you're going to have animal activists and you're going to have a title named Spenlov, you're going to get like the first 10 pages. What's this story about? So your suggestion was something a little bit more gritty, along the lines of Blood and Roses, which I thought was a great title. And so I used that title in there, and now we have Blood and Roses as the title, and then we actually have a war drama starting from the very beginning. And I got all those other elements. I wanted to get into it later, but I think you made the point about, you don't want to disappoint your audience. If they're expecting one thing, you don't want to be taking them off in a different direction, because then you're going to lose them before they find out it is a war drama. So thank you very much for your help with that, because that really helped a lot.
You're welcome. And I think if you're just listening to this interview, you can hear immediately that you identify John's genre immediately and what it's about just from those changes he made, which was his own material. He just had to kind of mix it up a little bit differently. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
so
That
that's
was a
so
great
that's
point.
fantastic. And congratulations on the win there. And this
Yeah.
just now, when was the announcement on it? Was it just recent?
Yeah, recent. It was just like last week, I don't know, last Thursday or Friday. And it's funny how, like, with us, and we put different entries in contests, you always go, got a quarterfinals. And I've been getting better and better. I've had a few find make it into nickels and get to pretty far in nickels too. In fact, Blood and Roses actually made the quarterfinals of nickels this last year, so I'm really happy with that too. But Fade In Awards is really good because the prize is they fly you out to Los Angeles and put you up in a hotel, and they have their big pitch fest once a year in West Los Angeles, and they bring in a lot of different production companies, producers, managers, and agents. And it's a very legit one. It's if you look at the people they've had there in the past, they're very legit companies and stuff. So that's the prize money, and that's I'm really looking forward to that, to go out there and pitch this along with some other screenplays that I've dealt in, a few that you've actually helped me with too.
That is exciting, and that is a tremendous award where you get to come out here to Los Angeles, do an entire a pitch event with producers. That is fantastic. So,
Yeah,
so get those pitches ready because we know how important
yeah.
that's very, very, very important. Now tell me what inspired you to write this screenplay from the very beginning? Because that undertaking a screenplay at all is a huge endeavor. What was your inspiration behind this?
Well, and I'm not going to get too long-winded here, but what I just started writing about 6 years ago, and I was at the end of Vietnam. I was involved with a thing called Operation Baby Lift, and I really buried a lot of guilt for a lot of years. And a traumatic event happened where I kind of broke down, and a friend of mine just said, "Hey, maybe you just want to journal on this and write this and everything." And so I thought about doing that, and I thought it's such a great story. Operation Baby Lift was being the mixed race babies at the end of Vietnam that were from the American GIs with the Vietnamese women. And when North Vietnam came down, there was a big scare that they were going to kill all the babies. So I was involved with that, the baby lift, and but I was really good with premature babies. So I didn't get to go ahead and go on the airplane that actually brought some of them back. And one of my buddies was killed, another guy. So kind of buried it. And it came up, and I started writing about that. And I wrote a really good screenplay with that. It actually made the semifinals and Nichols, and some people are interested. But then all of a sudden, it just made me want to write. So I just started, and I wrote a story called Miho, a little short about the border situation and the children, that were kind of like hostages in between both worlds, right? And then I was just sitting around at Thanksgiving, and my son's friend, who happened to be the inspiration for Blood and Roses, he was in town here, and his family wasn't here, and he was talking about what he did, as far as he was a mink farmer from Utah, young kid, wanted something else, joined the Marines, went there, got assigned to an accounting section, and ended up in Afghanistan. And then him and another guy was tasked to go out to make reparations. If a goat was killed, they would pay X amount of dollars and children. So that was, and I just saw how everybody sat around listening to his story, and they were just so intrigued by it. So I thought, ooh, that could be an interesting story. And having a personal connection with him through my son, it really just made me said this could be a very interesting story with my military background too. So that's kind of how I got into it.
Definitely. That is very fascinating. I think that's where we all want to start our writing from, is from that inspiration from within. At the same time, remembering that we're writing for an audience. If you kind of mix those two, that's the magic formula. It really is. So so I'd like to know, and I think our audience out there today, our other screenwriters, would probably like to know about your marketing. What have been your efforts, your successes? What things do you think didn't work and did work for you? If you could tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I'm a little older, which so much. It's not like where I'm really trying to bang down a door to get in a writer's room somewhere. But I've kind of just queried, different production companies, different, things along that line. But the big thing is I think me as an underrepresented writer, the contests were really a good gauge to go ahead and open some doors. And with Operation Baby Lift, the first one, it opened up with a production company. It was Gaina Burnetti's production company, Calvary Media at the time, and one of their executive, Alex Barnes. I'm still kind of working with him. We'll see what happens. That's a big, expensive movie to make. But the good thing is anytime I write one, he always wants me to send it to him first. So that's always you never know. I have a small short that a local producer did well in competitions called Seeds of Change, and that's actually in production right now. That's actually going to be coming out in 2024. It's a 3D animation one about a magical pumpkin and bullying and stuff, and it's a pretty cool story. But I also received a WGA fellowship this year. And I'm in that currently, where we're working on you have to take a brand new idea in with them, and you work with WGA writers. And I have a session tomorrow night. You develop it from idea through outline, through beat sheet. And we're at the end of the outline phase, and I get to start writing it. And that's a screenplay about my son's mental health journey through baseball and being drafted in pro baseball. But instead of turning pro, he founded a foundation for mental health. So it's, and what I find, Barb, too, and you may have some comments on this, I'm finding, rather than just having an idea out there about, oh, that could be an interesting, but a personal connection to the idea seems to be more interested to people, that if you pitch it, they want to, it's always like, why you and why now is the question I always get. So I'm trying to work more on things that I have a connection to, that would be like, why my story, or I should be the one to tell that story. So that's kind of how I go there.
Yeah, I think that's true anywhere today. Internet, anything you go to, people want to see social proof, and I think they want to see those experts, the person that has a personal connection. Either they're an expert in that area, they have a background in it, a personal experience in that. So that's why they ask that question when you get that from producers. If you're someone who's like, studied a certain thing your whole life or something, maybe you're just, self-educated on it, or maybe you had a personal experience at one point. That makes a big difference, because it kind of like makes you an authority on that, where you can sit down and you're not just writing it from paper research, you're writing it from your life experience. So
I go, another one that I wrote called Popeye, about the Pueblo Revolt of 1680. It's a, I feel a really good screenplay. Again, it made nickels, and it made all the way to the semifinals. And I was actually contacted by Eric Paquette, who was, the head of Sony at the time, and then going off to make another studio thing. And he really liked the script. But what the questions that all came across the board were, okay, so who's connected with this? Native American, how are you? And, I'm a big Irish guy, and I didn't have those connections. So it's just the reality, like you say, it's just kind of the reality of the market. They want to kind of see that. And so it just made me start looking at what I'm writing to be more connected to it personally, as to why I could tell this story, or unless it's some sort of thing that is not really connected to like a sort of cause type thing, but I'm usually kind of drawn towards cause things. So, but anyway.
Right. That makes a big difference. And that brings up a point that if you have done a subject like that, where they're, they're going to ask you where, you involved with this Indian tribe or whatever it might be, and I've advocated this in one of my books, is like going out and doing that personal research, like interview that, police detective, or that shaman from the tribe, take a few snapshots, and, and have that little bit, that more credibility behind it, because that makes a big difference with these producers.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if you just went out once, I mean, they don't know. If they do one time and talk to a shaman or a police detective, they don't know. But the fact that you were physically there and you're part of the story, that can make a really big difference in your marketing. Now, what do you do for market specific? Do you query? Do you make calls? You just do contests, or what's your?
Pretty much along that lines there. Not really. Just I query letters. I'll actually use places like Screenwriters staffing. I use that one too. They do query, and I've actually gotten some pretty good bites off of that one there too. But it's if I was going to really, if I was a lot younger and get into it, I probably would figure out a way to get to LA and just try to knock on doors and get to events and stuff, there as much as possible. I'm involved with the Screenwriter Association here, which is how my short got made. But I think being more aggressive in the marketplace, if I was younger, that's where I think would be my perspective of doing. I think there's only so much I'm going to do, from a distance and different ways. Now I have the fellowship. The end of that fellowship is we pitch to different production companies, studios, agents and stuff. At the end, we get to pitch this, which may lead to other connections. But it'd be interesting to hear your perspective on that. But I think the more you put yourself out there would probably be the best way to go. I would think,
So. personal networking makes a big difference. I think everything I've ever done in this business, from getting agents to everything else, even where I'm at today, came from that direct personal connection. And you don't have to necessarily live in Los Angeles for that. I mean, look, today we're here at Zoom. I'm in LA, and where are you,
Yeah,
John? What part of the
I'm
country?
in Phoenix. I'm in Phoenix right now,
He's in
Phoenix, Arizona.
Arizona. Okay, so see,
So,
you can connect more today than we ever could before, anytime in our history. So there's really no excuse there. You can get on these Zoom calls, you can and do things like that, get to know somebody and make it happen in a different way than just having to say, yeah, you can come to LA. I think that makes a difference because this is, well, the pandemic kind of made it a little less of a meeting town, lunches all the time, but
yeah,
it makes it more friendly. The Zoom thing is more popular now. So,
yeah.
okay, so tell me, how do you pitch producers? Do you have any recommendations to screenwriters? Like, what do you focus on? Is there something that you found that really perks with the producers that works with them?
No, the only thing that I've noticed with the queries and anything personal is just being able to be like that I'm cooperative, that you can work with me, that I don't have this is my mission and stuff, And I like to always start with something like, I guess the best place to start is to let me tell you why I was attracted to this material, which usually leads into a little bit explaining about who I am personally and the connection with that. And I've kind of go with that now, even on the query letters. I like to kind of put that up front, like, and then the other thing too is I'll always include two comps and something more current. There's some classic movies that I like, but those aren't in the marketplace now. But I try to get a couple comps up front, and I'll research into the producer and the production company. What kind of movies did they make and all this? Is it worth me even pitching this to them? But if I can get the comps, that seems to make a big interest because it'll trigger like whether they like it or not, I think. So that's kind of what it is. I try to be friendly up front. This is how I got it. And comps. That's my biggest ones, I think.
That's an important point you bring up, because really what the comps is doing is showing them that it already has an audience.
Yeah.
Which I've harped on that for like over a year now to my clients, that you have to really show it has an audience, either by building an audience or showing this has an audience. And that goes beyond just saying, hey, I think it's going to attract 18 to 35 or whatever age group, where you can actually show, here's the comparatives. That's very
Yeah.
important. I think it's a good point. It's a very, very good point. Did you
Yeah.
do any kind of visual presentation, or was it just a verbal pitches?
No, I've done that. I do. I don't know if I want to call them true pitch decks or lookbooks. I do that with everyone now to have it, and I usually try to wait. I've been very fortunate to get some awards and stuff, so I try to get a little bit of credibility in there too. And I've heard different things now, because I'll give like trying to, maybe there's projected some actors that are doing something similar.
Mhm.
And then some people say maybe you don't want to do, because then they focus on that. But I've tried to give them an idea of what the movie would look like, and tone wise, and stuff. But and I get a log line synopsis type thing in there, but something that they can review real quick. It gets an idea, I think. And but I love, and I also put those two comps in there. It's I think that's kind of important, because like you say, it is a business, and they want to know it's just something that I can make money off of. And I just think that really sets the tone right away. If they're looking at it, are you kind of checking the boxes to that, what they like too? So
Yeah, that's important. I just recently did I think a video. I think it was a video. It was an article, a video about the pitch decks. Now, I was telling everyone about the changes in the industry, in the TV network and streaming platforms. I did a video on it because it's very important. But one of the things I think I need to do a separate video on is the fact that you should be doing pitch decks now for your screenplays too, because John's absolutely right. It visually is powerful. It shows them what the market and audience is for your project. And you said yourself, it made a big difference visually for you.
yeah,
Yeah,
it does.
definitely.
I did a couple pitches in person, and I'm nervous with that stuff when I'm doing it. And like I say, that's why let me explain how I do it. And if you hand that pitch deck out, they're immediately in that world. They immediately get in there. If you do it right, you set the tone, you have the comps. I had a TV series that I was, pitching to, and I had, two comps for Law and Order and The Wire, and you could put that right there, and you could say, okay, procedural, serial, kind of get this, a little bit of gritty, and it just sets it, I think, right in the mood where they can start asking pertinent questions to you. So, but yeah, I try to do a pitch deck on everything. So it's just that one extra thing that you can maybe not put in words, but you can get it in that visual to them what you wanted to say. So anyway,
and it's more sales oriented than
yeah,
just trying to tell people how you feel about something, because producers are thinking, who do I sell this to? Because they're business
yeah,
people. And that having that visual edge there with the pitch deck gives them all those answers. And then you can
yeah,
focus on what your inspiration is behind it and all that. So it kind of
yeah.
takes the pressure off you from having to sell it, letting the pitch deck do the selling for you. Now, do you show the pitch deck right when you're pitching? Do you send it up front, or do you do that during like a personal pitch?
I've, both ways. I've done it a personal way, and then, when if I query them, I will usually, at the end. Of course, I never query and send them anything, right? Because I know they hate that. But I just let them know I have the script and a pitch deck, and I usually say, sure, send if they want it. Let's say send it and everything. But I found the one thing too is to really look at who you're sending it to, find out who they are and what they've done, to find out if this is really something, that is in their wheelhouse, where they're going to go, oh yeah, I like this kind of stuff, So I think that's kind of important too, that you're not sending something because they're, a big time person. They may, if they're not doing what you do, it's probably a waste of time, I think. I mean, at least initially anyway.
Yeah, it's a good idea to know who that producer is and what they've been doing, and if they've done any recent articles or something, like what they're planning to do. So if you sit down with them and they said, they've done comedy for 10 years and they're talking about doing a horror, and you're pitching them a horror because that's a big advantage for you to be in that. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have one final thing for you, so I don't want to take up too much of your time today. I know you're busy writing and getting ready to come to LA, and I'll see you when you're here in LA.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, we're going to have a little lunch and stuff. So my last thing to you is, this is going to be going out to producers too. I'm going to be starting our little interviews, marketing them in 2024 to producers that we work with, which we work with 4 major studios, over a dozen mini majors, and 64 production companies in the business. So I'm going to be giving the links to all of these interviews and tell them what your project's about, and they can go in and take a look at it if they want. So if there's anything you'd like to say to a producer now, this is your opportunity.
Okay. Well, thanks, Barb. Like I said, I'm not the best picture person, especially unprepared, but I was going to say, if a producer, to find out more about me personally, I have a website, jfmwrites.com, and I have all the different scripts are listed on there and the awards that they won, and email if you go ahead and want a copy of them. And I have pitch decks for everyone. So and while we've talked a little bit about war stuff, that's been a kind of a focus of a few of my scripts. But I just wrote one called Hellfire and Pronoun, which is I guess it's war because it's a Vietnam vet, but with a current transgender person, and they end up on the run together. It's pretty interesting. It's done some pretty good in awards and finished at Austin this year too, which makes me feel good. But what I would say, I'm very flexible to kind of work with. If you can notice, like with Barb, I took her expertise about my script and said, add this, but can you change this and make it better? And her suggestions were good enough to where I ended up winning this particular contest, because of the first 10 pages, when what she said I should go ahead and put there. So I'm very open and flexible to work with people as far as trying to, make things work and collaborate and stuff. I understand it's collaborative. And I would just check out my website, and we just, could go from there, I guess. So I'll end it there.
Okay, John, well, thank you for being with us today. I'm going to click off, but hold on for just 1 second. And thank you to everyone for watching our interview today. And we're going to be having more of these upcoming. So if you are a screenwriter who's won a contest recently or had some production options, contact me for an interview. So let's stay on there. Okay.